Before we continue, if you believe our stories deserve to be heard, do me a quick favor. Hit the like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who loves meaningful African tales. Let's keep our stories alive together.
The slap echoed across the compound like a gunshot. 14-year-old Elijah Carter staggered backward, his school notebook flying from his hands and landing face down in a puddle of dirty water. The evening rain had just stopped, and the smell of wet earth mixed with soap suds from the clothes he had been washing since dawn. His cheek burned, his eyes stayed lowered, but his fists clenched at his sides. "You think you're smarter than everyone here," his uncle Bernard Carter shouted, breathing hard. "Answer me." Elijah did not answer. He had learned long ago that silence was safer. Bernard's wife, Aunt Loretta, stood behind her husband with her arms crossed, her lips twisted in anger. "Look at him," she sneered. "Always reading, always writing. Do you think books will feed you? Do you think school will save you?" She kicked the fallen notebook toward the gutter. Pages soaked up muddy water, ink bleeding into tears. From inside the house, their children laughed loudly at a comedy show on television. They had finished dinner an hour ago. Elijah had not eaten since morning. "Go and scrub the toilets again," Loretta said coldly. "And when you're done, fetch water from the stream. If I see you open that book tonight, you'll sleep outside." Bernard leaned closer to Elijah's face. "Your parents are dead," he said in a low, cruel voice. "You are nothing here, remember that." Elijah nodded slowly. He bent down, picked up his ruined notebook, and pressed it to his chest. As he turned toward the back of the house, something inside him hardened, not anger, not hatred, determination. Because earlier that same day, something had happened at school. Something that could change everything. And if his uncle and aunt found out, they would do far worse than slap him. Elijah stepped into the darkness behind the house, unaware that the path ahead would soon tear this family apart. 10 years earlier, Elijah's life had been full of laughter. He was 10 years old when his parents died in a terrible car accident on a rainy highway outside Ibadan. His father, Samuel Carter, had been a gentle mechanic who fixed cars with patience and pride. His mother, Ruth Carter, sold fabrics at the market and sang while she worked. Elijah remembered her voice more than her face. After the burial, there was no debate about where Elijah would go. Bernard, Samuel's older brother, stepped forward and said, "I'll take the boy." At first, people praised him. "God will bless you," the elders said. "You have a good heart." But hearts can change behind closed doors. The first year was quiet but heavy. Elijah slept on a thin mat in the storeroom. He ate last. He wore his cousin's old clothes. Still, he smiled. Still, he said thank you. By the second year, the work increased. Before school, Elijah swept the compound, washed plates, and fetched water. After school, he cooked, cleaned, washed clothes, and massaged Bernard's tired legs. At night, while others slept, he read borrowed textbooks by candlelight. Loretta noticed. "He's too focused," she complained to her husband. "Why does he need to read so much? Our children don't even study like that." Bernard frowned. "I won't allow him to disgrace us by becoming something big while our own children struggle." That was when the real suffering began. They started giving Elijah impossible tasks on school days, washing all clothes by hand, clearing the bush behind the house, running errands that took hours. If he returned late from school, he was beaten. If he came home with good grades, he was punished. Yet the more they tried to break him, the brighter Elijah became. At Freedom Community Secondary School, teachers began to notice him. He was handsome in a quiet way, with caramel skin, sharp eyes, and a calm confidence that made people listen when he spoke. He solved problems faster than anyone. He helped classmates without pride. He led group discussions like someone far older than his age. One afternoon, his math teacher, Mr. Johnson, called him aside. "Elijah," he said gently, "have you ever heard of the Kingsbridge Scholarship Program?" Elijah shook his head. It's for exceptional students, Mr. Johnson continued. Students with brilliance and discipline. It sends them to some of the best schools in the country. Elijah's heart pounded. Sir, people like me don't get those chances. Mr. Johnson smiled. People like you are exactly who it's meant for. Elijah applied in secret. Weeks later, a sealed letter arrived at the school office. That same letter now sat hidden beneath a loose floorboard in the storeroom where Elijah slept. Back in the present, Elijah scrubbed toilets until his hands ached. As he fetched water from the stream, the moon reflected on the surface, shaking with every step he took. He returned home late, exhausted and hungry. The house lights were off. He slipped into the storeroom, lifted the loose board and pulled out the letter. His hands trembled as he read it again. Congratulations, you have been awarded a full scholarship to Kingsbridge International Academy. Elijah pressed his palm to his mouth to stop himself from crying out. Kingsbridge was not just any school. It was a prestigious academy attended by children of politicians, business moguls, and billionaires. A world far removed from chores, insults, and pain. But joy quickly gave way to fear. If Bernard and Loretta discovered the truth, they would destroy the letter. They would destroy his future. As if summoned by his thoughts, the storeroom door creaked open. A shadow filled the doorway. Elijah, Loretta's voice said softly, too softly, "What are you hiding?" His heart slammed against his chest as her eyes moved toward the loose floorboard. In that moment, Elijah realized the danger was closer than he ever imagined. And this was only the beginning. Loretta's eyes narrowed as she stepped fully into the storeroom. The single bulb above flickered, casting shadows on the rough walls. Elijah froze beside his thin mat, his heart pounding so loudly he was sure she could hear it. Hiding things now? She asked, her voice smooth but dangerous. After all we do for you. Elijah swallowed. No, Ma. She scanned the room slowly, the bucket in the corner, the broom, the sack of old clothes. Her gaze paused on the floor just for a second where the board was slightly uneven. Elijah's breath caught. Then Bernard's voice came from the house. Loretta, are you coming or not? She clicked her tongue in annoyance. I'm coming. Before leaving, she pointed a finger at Elijah. Be careful, she said, I'm watching you. When she left, Elijah collapsed onto the mat, shaking. He waited until the house went silent again before pulling out the letter once more. He read it like a prayer, committing every word to memory. Kingsbridge International Academy. He knew that once he left this house, he would never be the same again, but getting out would not be easy. The acceptance letter required a guardian's signature. That was the problem. The days that followed were harder than ever. Loretta watched him closely. Bernard found new ways to keep him busy. One morning, Elijah woke up before dawn, hopping to study for a physics test. Instead, Bernard handed him a cutlass. You're clearing the bush today, his uncle said, every inch. But sir, I have. Bernard raised his hand. Elijah took the cutlass and walked out quietly. At school, his teachers noticed the change. He was still brilliant, but the dark circles under his eyes grew deeper. He sometimes nodded off in class. Mr. Johnson pulled him aside again. Elijah, what's going on at home? Elijah hesitated. He had never spoken badly about his uncle before, but something told him the truth mattered now. They don't want me to succeed, he said softly. Mr. Johnson's jaw tightened. You won't be the first child to face this, he said, and you won't face it alone. That afternoon, Elijah was called to the principal's office. Principal Grace Williams, a tall woman with calm eyes, listened carefully as Elijah explained his situation. He did not cry. He spoke plainly, like someone used to hardship. When he finished, the room was silent. Elijah, Principal Williams said slowly, do you know what this scholarship means? Yes, Ma. It means you are protected, she replied. No one can take this from you. She reached into a drawer and brought out a phone. we will handle the guardian issue. Elijah's eyes widened. But my uncle. We will speak to him, she said firmly. Fear twisted in Elijah's stomach. That evening, Bernard returned from work to find Principal Williams and Mr. Johnson sitting in his living room. What is this? Bernard asked, confused but irritated. Principal Williams stood. Thank you for seeing us, Mr. Carter. We're here about Elijah. Bernard stiffened. What about him? Mr. Johnson spoke next. Elijah has been selected for a full scholarship to Kingsbridge International Academy. Loretta, who had been listening from the kitchen, rushed in. What? Bernard laughed sharply. That must be a mistake. It is not, Principal Williams said. He is one of the brightest students we've seen in years. Bernard's face darkened. Loretta's eyes flicked to Elijah, who stood near the door, head lowered. You didn't tell us, Loretta snapped. Elijah said nothing. We need your signature, Principal Williams continued. He leaves in 2 weeks. Bernard stood up suddenly. Absolutely not. The room went silent. He is our responsibility, Bernard said, and we say no. Principal Williams did not flinch. Then the authorities will be informed. Loretta gasped. Are you threatening us? No, Principal Williams said calmly. I am protecting a child. Bernard clenched his fists. Get out of my house. As the visitors left, Bernard turned slowly toward Elijah. So, he said quietly, you think you're better than us now. That night, Elijah was locked out of the house. He slept on the bare ground, cold and hungry, staring up at the sky. Yet, for the first time, he did not feel hopeless. Because the world had seen him. And once the world sees you, it cannot unsee you. Inside the house, Bernard and Loretta whispered angrily. If he leaves, Loretta said, we lose everything. Bernard nodded slowly. Then he must not leave. Neither of them noticed the small crack in the wall or the pair of eyes watching from the darkness. Elijah had heard every word. Elijah did not sleep that night. The words he had overheard kept repeating in his mind like a warning bell. He must not leave. By morning, his body was weak, but his mind was sharp. He moved carefully, saying little, watching everything. Bernard and Loretta pretended nothing had happened, but their kindness felt forced, like a mask worn too tightly. Loretta even served him breakfast. A small plate of food. Elijah knew better than to relax. At school, Principal Williams moved quickly. Child welfare officers were contacted. Documents were prepared. The scholarship committee confirmed everything. Elijah's transfer date was fixed. The news spread among teachers, then students. Kingsbridge, his classmates whispered, that's where rich kids go. Elijah kept his head down, but inside, hope grew stronger than fear. That afternoon, a black SUV arrived at the school gate. A well-dressed woman stepped out, her posture calm but powerful. She was Mrs. Evelyn Brooks, a representative from the Kingsbridge Foundation. Elijah Carter, she asked kindly. Yes, Ma. She smiled, we've been expecting you. The ride to the foundation office felt unreal. Air conditioning cooled his tired skin. Soft music played. Mrs. Brooks asked about his dreams. I want to learn, Elijah said simply, and help others like me. She nodded, impressed. By evening, Elijah returned home with official papers and a small travel bag provided by the foundation. He was to leave in 3 days. Bernard's face tightened when he saw the bag. You're not going anywhere, he said flatly. Loretta stepped closer, her voice low. You think these people will stay forever? When they leave, you'll still be here. Elijah met her eyes for the first time in years. I'm leaving. The slap came fast. Bernard dragged him by the collar into the storeroom and locked the door. You will learn your place, he said. Hours passed. Night fell. Elijah sat in darkness, bruised but unbroken. He pressed his back against the wall and breathed slowly. Then he heard it. Sirens. Voices. The door burst open. Child welfare officers stood there, followed by Principal Williams and Mrs. Brooks. Bernard shouted, Loretta cried, neighbors gathered. Elijah stepped into the light. For the first time, he walked out of that compound without looking back. As the car pulled away, Loretta screamed, You'll regret this. Elijah did not answer. Because for the first time in his life, he was free. If this story is touching your heart so far, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what happens next. Share this story with someone who believes education can change lives. Also, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Kingsbridge International Academy did not look like a school to Elijah, it looked like a small city. Tall buildings with glass windows reflected the morning sun, green lawns stretched wide, trimmed neatly like carpets. Students walked confidently in clean uniforms, some speaking with accents Elijah had only heard on television. Expensive cars lined the driveway and security guards stood alert at the gates. Elijah stepped out of the vehicle slowly, gripping his small bag. For a moment doubt crept in. Do I really belong here? Mrs. Brooks noticed the hesitation. Elijah, she said gently, remember something, you didn't arrive here by luck, you earned your place. Those words stayed with him. From the very first week, Elijah realized Kingsbridge was different from anything he had known. The classes were challenging. The teachers demanded excellence. Students competed fiercely. Yet Elijah thrived. While others struggled with advanced math and science, Elijah understood quickly. His diligence, built from years of balancing chores and studies, gave him an edge. He woke up early, studied late, and asked questions without fear. Some students noticed. Who's the new guy? One boy asked during class. That's Elijah, another replied, scholarship kid. The word scholarship carried weight. Some respected it, others mocked it. But Elijah did not care. He focused. It was during a leadership workshop that his life changed again. Students were divided into groups and given a complex problem to solve. Voices clashed, arguments broke out. No one listened to anyone else. Elijah watched quietly. Then he spoke. Let's slow down, he said calmly. Everyone has good ideas, we just need a plan. Something about his tone made people listen. He assigned roles, encouraged shy students, and organized the chaos into clear steps. By the end of the session, their group finished first. Applause filled the room. Among those clapping was a young woman sitting near the window. Her name was Naomi Brooks. She was beautiful in a simple, natural way, caramel skin glowing under the light. Her hair was pulled into a neat, natural bun. Her eyes were sharp, curious, and kind. She was also the daughter of Richard Brooks, a billionaire tech investor and one of Kingsbridge's biggest donors. Naomi had grown up surrounded by privilege, but she disliked arrogance. She had seen too many people pretend confidence without substance. Elijah was different. Later that day, she approached him in the library. You handled that group really well, she said. Elijah looked up surprised. Thank you. I'm Naomi. Elijah. They shook hands. That was how it began. Their friendship grew naturally. They studied together, talked about books, debated ideas. Naomi was brilliant in her own right, curious about the world beyond her comfort. Elijah spoke about life with honesty but without bitterness. He never complained. That impressed her the most. You could be angry, Naomi once said, but you're not. Elijah smiled softly. Anger wastes time. Naomi laughed. You're strange. Maybe, he said. They challenged each other, pushed each other, and slowly something deeper formed. What Elijah did not know was that Naomi's father was watching. Richard Brooks was a careful man. He did not trust easily. When he heard about the scholarship boy getting close to his daughter, he asked questions. Who is this Elijah? He asked Naomi one evening. Someone real, she replied. Richard frowned. Be careful. Naomi held her ground. You taught me to value character over wealth. Richard said nothing, but he decided to observe. While Elijah's life was rising, Bernard was falling apart. With Elijah gone, the house felt empty. The chores Elijah used to handle piled up. Bernard's children struggled at school, teachers complained, bills increased. Worst of all, child welfare services kept checking in. Neighbors whispered. Loretta grew bitter. That boy cursed us, she said. Bernard drank more. One evening a letter arrived. It was from the local authorities. An investigation into child abuse had been opened. Bernard's hands shook. He did this, Loretta hissed. He ruined us. Bernard stared at the wall. No, he said slowly, we ruined ourselves. But it was too late. Back at Kingsbridge, Elijah received an unexpected invitation. A formal dinner. Hosted by Richard Brooks. Elijah hesitated. He had never attended anything like that. Naomi smiled. Relax, just be yourself. The dinner was elegant. Conversations flowed easily. Business leaders laughed and exchanged ideas. Richard Brooks watched Elijah closely. When the opportunity came, he asked him a simple question. Young man, what do you want from life? Elijah answered without hesitation. To grow, to build, and to lift others when I can. Richard studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded. Something shifted that night. As Elijah returned to his dorm, his phone buzzed with a message from Naomi. Thank you for coming, my father respects you. Elijah looked up at the stars, a quiet smile on his face. Far away, in a dim house filled with regret, Bernard sat alone, holding an official notice that would change his life forever. And neither man yet understood how deeply their futures were about to collide. The semester moved fast, and Elijah moved with it. At Kingsbridge, success was not handed out freely. Students were expected to prove themselves every single day. Exams were tough. Projects demanded teamwork and leadership. Competition was quiet but intense. Elijah fit into this world like he had been preparing for it all his life. He became known as the student who never gave up. When others complained, he adapted. When others panicked, he stayed calm. Teachers trusted him. Classmates sought his help. During one major science competition, a team leader fell sick 2 days before the presentation. Panic spread. We're finished, one student said. Elijah stepped forward. We're not finished, he said. We just need to reorganize. He worked through the night, guiding the team, correcting mistakes, encouraging everyone. On presentation day, their project won first place. The hall erupted in applause. From the back row, Naomi watched him with pride. That night she called him, You don't even realize how powerful you are, do you? Elijah laughed softly, I'm just doing my best. That's what scares people, she replied. Your best is already so much. Their friendship quietly crossed into something deeper. It was not rushed. It was built on respect, shared values, and understanding. They supported each other through stress and success alike. When Elijah spoke about the past, Naomi listened. She did not pity him, she admired his strength. You survived what would have broken many, she told him one evening as they sat on a bench overlooking the school grounds. Elijah looked ahead. I didn't survive alone. Some people believed in me when they didn't have to. Naomi smiled, then promised me something. What? When you reach the top, don't forget to look back. I won't, he said. I know what it's like to be left behind. Richard Brooks continued to observe quietly. He noticed how Elijah never asked for favors, how he treated staff with the same respect as executives, how he spoke thoughtfully even when challenged. One afternoon, Richard invited Elijah to his office. You remind me of myself when I was younger, Richard said, except I didn't face half of what you did. Elijah remained humble. I'm still learning, sir. Richard nodded. Good, pride ruins potential. That day, Richard made a private decision. Back in Ibadan, Bernard's life collapsed piece by piece. The investigation moved forward, witnesses spoke, teachers testified, neighbors shared stories they had ignored for too long. Loretta blamed everyone but herself. "It's witchcraft," she said. "That boy has turned people against us." Bernard said nothing. Then the final blow came. Bernard lost his job. Without Elijah's unpaid labor, the house fell apart. Their children struggled, debts piled up. The respect Bernard once commanded in the community faded. One evening, Bernard sat alone and remembered the quiet boy who used to wake before sunrise to work without complaint. For the first time, guilt cut deeper than anger. Years passed. Elijah graduated at the top of his class. He received offers from top universities. With support from the Kingsbridge Foundation and a recommendation from Richard Brooks himself, he chose a prestigious institution abroad. Naomi left as well, pursuing her own path in business and social impact. Distance tested them, but it did not break them. They grew together. Elijah studied hard, worked harder, and never forgot where he came from. During breaks, he volunteered, mentoring students from difficult backgrounds. Naomi admired him even more. "You're not chasing success," she told him, "you're building purpose." When Elijah returned after graduation, he was no longer the boy who slept in a storeroom. He was confident, educated, respected. And he was about to face the past he had left behind. One afternoon, as he attended a local community event, someone called his name. "Elijah." He turned. Bernard stood there, thinner, older, his eyes tired. For a moment, time stood still. "I heard you came back," Bernard said quietly. "You've done well." Elijah studied him calmly. "I hope you're doing okay." Bernard looked down. "I'm not." Silence stretched between them. "I was wrong," Bernard said finally. "I failed you." Elijah said nothing. Bernard's voice broke. "If I could go back." "You can't," Elijah replied gently, "but you can do better now." Bernard nodded, tears in his eyes. They parted without forgiveness, but without hatred. Sometimes closure did not need words. As Elijah walked away, his phone buzzed. A message from Naomi. "There's something important we need to talk about." Elijah smiled. He had a feeling his life was about to change again. And this time the change would be permanent. Elijah met Naomi that evening at a quiet cafe near the city center. The place was simple, warm, and calm, the kind of space where serious conversations felt safe. Naomi arrived a few minutes late, her natural hair pulled into a neat bun, her face glowing but tense. "There's something I need to tell you," she said as soon as they sat down. Elijah nodded. "I'm listening." Naomi took a breath. "My father has been watching your journey for a long time, not just as my father but as a man who believes in legacy. He respects you deeply." Elijah smiled politely, unsure where this was going. "He wants to invest in the kind of future you represent," Naomi continued. "Education, mentorship, opportunities for children who grow up like you did." Elijah's expression changed. "Children who are overlooked." "Yes," she said, "and he wants you to help lead it." Elijah leaned back slowly, the weight of the words settled in his chest. "That's a huge responsibility." Naomi smiled softly. "You've been carrying huge responsibilities since you were a child." Elijah looked away for a moment, memories flashing through his mind. Buckets of water, late nights, bruises hidden under sleeves, a ruined notebook soaked in mud. "I don't want to become someone who forgets pain once comfort arrives," he said. Naomi reached across the table and held his hand. "That's why you're the right person." Months later, the Carter Brooks Education Initiative was launched quietly. It started small: scholarships, school supplies, mentorship programs in both African and underserved American communities. Elijah insisted on visiting the communities himself. He stood in classrooms where children reminded him of himself, quiet, sharp-eyed, hungry for opportunity. Your background does not define your limit, he told them. It can become your strength. News of the initiative spread. People began to recognize Elijah not just as a success story, but as a bridge. Naomi worked beside him, managing projects, building partnerships, and ensuring transparency. They complemented each other naturally. One evening, Richard Brooks invited them both to dinner at his home. "Elijah," Richard said after the meal, "I have one more question for you." "Yes, sir." "Do you love my daughter?" Elijah did not hesitate. "Yes," with respect and intention. Richard nodded slowly. "Then I will not stand in the way of what is right." Naomi's eyes filled with tears. A few weeks later, Elijah proposed. It was simple, honest, no cameras, no crowd. Naomi said yes. As preparations for the wedding began, word reached Ibadan. Bernard heard the news from a neighbor. "Elijah," the man said, "he's marrying a billionaire's daughter." Bernard sat down heavily. Loretta laughed bitterly. "That boy, he must have bewitched them." But when Bernard looked around their small, worn-out house, reality pressed hard against him. He remembered the warnings, the visits from welfare officers, the day Elijah was taken away. He remembered how he had chosen pride over compassion. For the first time, Bernard felt something close to fear. The wedding was held at a peaceful estate surrounded by trees and open sky. It was elegant but not extravagant. Guests came from different worlds: educators, community leaders, business people, former teachers, and children Elijah had mentored. When Naomi walked down the aisle, Elijah's breath caught. She was beautiful, but more than that. She was steady, certain. As they exchanged vows, Elijah's voice did not shake. "I promise to walk with you in purpose," he said, "in comfort and in challenge." Naomi smiled. "And I promise to build with you, not above you, not behind you." Applause filled the air. Among the guests, Bernard stood at a distance. He had come uninvited. He watched Elijah laugh with confidence, watched Naomi's father shake his hand with pride, watched the crowd celebrate the boy he once called nothing. Tears ran freely down Bernard's face. He turned and left quietly, carrying a regret that would follow him forever. After the wedding, Elijah and Naomi returned to the estate for a small gathering. Music played softly, laughter flowed easily. Richard Brooks raised a glass. "To Elijah," he said, "a man who turned suffering into service." Everyone applauded. Elijah looked around, humbled. But far away, trouble was still brewing. Loretta, consumed by bitterness, made a decision that would seal her fate. She went to the local authorities and told lies, claimed Elijah had been manipulated, claimed abuse never happened, claimed the scholarship was stolen. What she did not know was that records existed, witnesses existed, evidence existed. Nemesis was patient. And it was already on its way. Loretta expected chaos when she went to the authorities. She expected confusion, arguments, maybe even sympathy. What she did not expect was silence. The officer across the desk flipped through a thick file without looking at her. Page after page, reports, statements, dates, photographs. "You're saying the boy was never abused," the officer said calmly. "Yes," Loretta replied quickly. "People are exaggerating because he's rich now, they want money." The officer finally looked up. "Mrs. Carter, did you know we've been monitoring this case for years?" Loretta's throat went dry. "You were reported multiple times," he continued. "School officials, neighbors, medical records, witness statements." "That's a lie," she snapped, but her voice trembled. He slid a photograph across the table. It showed a much younger Elijah, thin, standing beside a teacher, bruises faintly visible on his arm. Loretta's mouth opened, but no words came out. "We also have written testimony from you," the officer said, flipping another page, "where you admitted to locking him out overnight as punishment." Loretta's hands shook. "I was disciplining him." The officer closed the file. You were abusing him. That was the moment Loretta understood. She had not come to accuse Elijah. She had walked straight into judgment. The news reached Bernard the next day. Loretta had been detained for questioning. The investigation was officially reopened, this time with new evidence and national attention because of Elijah's public role. Bernard sat on his bed staring at the wall. He did not feel surprised, only tired. For years he had buried his guilt under pride, now it was clawing its way back. He remembered the boy's calm eyes, the silence, the obedience. He remembered the night Elijah was locked outside. Bernard whispered to himself, I failed you. Elijah heard about Loretta's actions from a legal advisor. She accused you, the woman said carefully, but it backfired. Elijah listened quietly. How far will this go? He asked. That depends, the advisor replied, on whether you want justice or distance. Elijah looked out the window. He thought of the child he once was, the one who had survived by keeping his head down, the one who had been told he was nothing. I don't want revenge, he said finally, but I won't protect lies. That was all. The truth was enough. As the case unfolded, the community watched closely. People who had once stayed silent now spoke freely. I saw him carrying water before school, one neighbor said. They beat him for coming first in class, a former teacher testified. I heard them say they would destroy his future, another witness added. Each statement tightened the net. Loretta's anger turned into panic. Bernard was questioned next. He did not fight. He told the truth. I was cruel, he said plainly. I thought fear would keep him small. I was wrong. The room went quiet. His confession sealed everything. Meanwhile, Elijah and Naomi continued their work. They refused to let the past derail their purpose. They visited schools, met students, launched new programs. But the weight of the case lingered. One evening, Naomi found Elijah sitting alone on the balcony. You're carrying this quietly, she said. Elijah nodded. I don't want to become defined by what was done to me. Naomi sat beside him. You won't, but it's okay to acknowledge it. Elijah exhaled slowly. I used to think surviving was enough, now I know healing matters too. Naomi smiled gently. You're doing both. The court date was set. Loretta would be charged, Bernard would face consequences. The community buzzed with anticipation. Some called it karma, others called it justice. Elijah did not attend the hearings. He was busy visiting a rural school where children studied under leaking roofs but still raised their hands eagerly. As he spoke to them, he felt something settle inside him. The past no longer had power over his future. On the day the verdict was announced, Elijah received a message. It's over. He closed his eyes. Nemesis had arrived not with noise but with truth. Yet even as the chapter of judgment closed, one final reckoning remained. Not in a courtroom, but in the heart of a man who had once chosen cruelty over compassion. Bernard asked for one last meeting. And Elijah agreed. The meeting took place in a quiet community hall, far from courts and crowds. Bernard arrived early. He looked smaller than Elijah remembered. His shoulders were slumped, his hair was streaked with gray, the confidence he once carried like armor was gone. When Elijah walked in, Bernard stood up slowly. For a moment neither spoke. Elijah was no longer the frightened boy who avoided eye contact. He stood tall, calm, and steady. Success had not made him arrogant. Pain had not made him bitter. Thank you for coming, Bernard said, his voice rough. Elijah nodded. You asked to see me. Bernard swallowed hard. I won't make excuses, he began. What we did was wrong. Elijah listened silently. I was jealous, Bernard continued, shame clear in his eyes. You were not my child, yet you shined brighter than my own. Instead of guiding you, I tried to crush you. His voice broke. I thought if I kept you small, I would feel big. Elijah took a deep breath. I was a child, he said calmly. I needed protection, not competition. Bernard nodded, tears slipping down his face. I know, and I will carry that forever. Silence filled the room. Then Elijah spoke words Bernard never expected. I don't forgive you because you asked, Elijah said, and I don't forgive you to free you. Bernard's heart sank. I forgive you because I refuse to remain tied to the pain, Elijah continued. What you did shaped me, but it does not define me. Bernard covered his face and cried openly. Elijah stood. I hope you choose to live better, he said, that's all. He turned and walked out. The door closed softly behind him. That was the end of the past. Loretta was sentenced. The ruling was firm, clear evidence, clear consequences. The community reacted with mixed emotions. Some felt satisfaction, others felt sadness. But one thing was certain. The truth had won. Months later, the Carter Brooks Education Initiative expanded beyond expectations. Dozens of students received scholarships. Mentorship centers opened in multiple communities. Elijah personally followed up on students who reminded him of himself. Quiet, brilliant, overlooked. One afternoon during a scholarship award ceremony, a small boy tugged Elijah's sleeve. Sir, the boy asked shyly, were you really poor once? Elijah smiled and knelt to the boy's level. Yes. The boy's eyes widened. Then maybe I can do it too. Elijah placed a hand on his shoulder. You already are. Naomi watched from a distance, her heart full. Later that evening, she and Elijah sat together, watching the sunset. Do you ever think about how close everything came to breaking you? She asked. Elijah nodded, sometimes. And then I think about how close everything came to breaking them, he replied. But they chose cruelty, I chose growth. Naomi smiled, I'm proud of you. Years passed. Elijah became a respected voice in education and leadership. Naomi built global partnerships. Together, they raised children who knew love, discipline, and freedom. Their home was filled with books, laughter, and purpose. One day, Elijah received a letter. No return address. Inside was a short note. I am trying to do better. Thank you for not becoming what we made you suffer. Elijah folded the letter gently and placed it away. The past no longer controlled him. The orphan boy who was once overworked, beaten, and silenced had become a man of influence, integrity, and compassion. The uncle and aunt who tried to destroy his future were undone not by revenge, but by truth. Nemesis did not arrive with fire or noise. It arrived with consequences. And Elijah's life was transformed for good.
Thank you for watching Black Race Tales. Remember, every story carries a lesson, and every lesson carries our legacy. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and share this story with someone who needs its message today. See you in the next tale.